Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Abigail.
We're sisters.
And we believe in ghosts.
Welcome to Supernatural Sisters, a podcast all about ghostly encounters, bone-chilling monsters, and basically anything that goes bump in the night. Each week, we talk about a haunted place, a legendary monster, or a story that sends shivers down our spines. And maybe we'll talk about the pottery scene from Ghost.
He's not a ghost in that scene. There are other parts of that movie where he's a ghost.
Subscribe wherever you get podcasts.
And remember, we believe you.
Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva.
And this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder
and lists.
Brought to you by the Podmoth Podcasting Network. They're amazing. Check them out. And Diva and I were just talking shit on palm oil.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
we weren't talking shit on vegans. I have a lot of vegan friends and I love them dearly. We were just mentioning that it's interesting how vegans don't consider always the implications of the food that they're eating, like palm oil causing deforestation and palm oil having the way it's being harvested and the human rights abuses with it. And as a non-vegan, like, I guarantee you I do a fuck ton of damage all on my own. But it was just an interesting conversation about the ills of palm oil. It'll give you cancer too.
Don't eat Earth Balance, man. It's full of fucking palm oil. Yeah.
And also 99.9% of no stir peanut butters have palm oil in them. That's why they are no stir.
I actually love talking about evil commodities. It's like one of my favorite things.
I saw
there's so many.
I saw one of those like branch diagrams of like all the shit that Nestle owns, and I was just like, God damn it. Also, like, what happened to not allowing companies to be like mega companies? Like, I don't know. It's not necessarily a monopoly, but like, why do they?
Oh no, we fully allow that.
Why does Nestle own Kiehl's? Did you guys know that?
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's like I've been boycotting their candy forever, and like now I have to change lotions. It's like, fuck, man.
I like Kiehl's too.
I know.
It sucks.
No more. That's it.
Man.
I know. It was just a weird. We were having an interesting.
What did they start as? Chocolate?
Yeah, they were like a candy maker. I think out of England, which like is a red flag right there. No offense, English people, we love you, but let's just be real about we're all imperialists here, you know. Like,
no,
we all suck. Anyway, before we alienate too many viewers or listeners with our politics, we should talk about what we're doing this
Someone's turning off the podcast. They're like, I love palm oil.
Yeah, these fucking Nestle hating commies, and then they go make some tea. So, you know, it's fine. What do we're doing? I picked this and I'm having trouble. We're doing California death row cases. So these are the stories of the people who are on California death row,
which is in San Quentin.
San Quentin for the men anyway. For women, it's Chowchilla.
Oh, okay.
Next episode, you'll see why I say that. Hint, hint. But for all the good it does in California, basically it just costs more to house these people because we have a moratorium on the death penalty.
Yes.
So it's symbolic. Nobody's dying. It just costs the taxpayers more money to have it. Yet our fellow Californians continue to vote for it. I don't get it.
The last execution in California was in 2006 for our reference. So almost 20 years ago.
That's crazy. I don't know who it was.
Yeah, I just Clarence Ray Allen.
Okay.
He killed 3 people.
I wonder who the governor was at that point. I can't think back that far. It wasn't like
I think it was Schwarzenegger.
Was it?
There's the Governator. Yeah.
Man, that's disappointing. I think he's turned a lot more left in his older age, though. He really has. But he's also involved with the Kennedy family, so like he's not a good person. Really
recently though, if you're not in California, our last election we had 2 things on the ballot. One was to abolish the death penalty, and one was to like speed it up and make sure that we kill people faster. And overwhelmingly our Democratic blue state voted to kill people faster. So we have this really interesting state that's like quite liberal overall, but actually loves the death penalty, even though again we have a moratorium, so we haven't killed anyone in like almost 20 years.
It's because California is rich and they're neoliberal. So they're not really left at all.
Liberal in selective ways.
Yeah.
Only.
It's a class war and we're all richer here than a lot of the nation. So that's how that happens.
But also when I was in the Bay Area and I lived there and I visited there because I have family there, I'm always like,
Mhm.
when you drive by that bridge, was it the Marin Bridge or something?
Mhm.
And you drive, there's one bridge where you go right past San Quentin. And I'm
Yeah.
always stop and think like, wow, like
Yeah.
the roommates that are in that and the death row are in like one little building separate from the rest of the population.
Yeah, because truly there aren't that many people on death row in California. It's not something that we hand
Like
out.
700.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, really, but California is a very big state with a lot of crime. So comparatively, it's not that bad. And again, at least for now, none of them have much to worry about. So, but yeah, let's get started. You're going first, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
And I tried to pick, I wanted to also note, like, just another preface here, that I tried to pick, like, cases where, let's say, I don't believe in the death penalty, but where some listeners might feel that the sentence is befitting of the crime, you know, or where the crime is very bad. But I did like, as I browsed the San Quentin death row, like, interactive page with all the profiles, I did see a lot of people where I was like, that doesn't feel death penalty to me, you know, where it's like shot and killed someone in a robbery. And I'm like, okay, I mean, that's definitely shitty, but it's like, is this exceptionally bad? Like,
that's the really interesting thing is when you compare case to case, and there'll be somebody who killed like 5 people and they get life, and then there will be somebody who kind of almost accidentally killed somebody like in the commission of another crime and they get death, and you're like,
or shot into a crowd and someone got shot. That was one of them, and I was like, that does not seem like a death penalty case.
Yeah, I mean,
but
that's
then they're
you start
black, and you're like, oh,
yep, exactly. You start looking at race, you start looking at class.
It is applied very inconsistently.
Yeah, shocking that, huh?
Yeah, there's not like a consistent rule, but
there is a consistent rule, actually. It's just unspoken.
Yeah.
Basically, like if you're poor or black, it's more likely you're going to get, you know, the death penalty. But in any case, all right. So this one, at least we won't feel quite as bad about, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely not.
Okay.
So this is Alejandro Avila. That's our resident of San Quentin. It's happened in 2002 in Stanton and or Lake Elsinore, California, which is south of Riverside.
Yeah.
Kind of small suburb of Riverside. Here we go. And just warning, this involves a crime against a child, and it's like really horrific and haunting, and it'll ruin your day. So
thanks. That's kind of your thing, Diva. I gotta tell you.
Good morning, Cindy. Yeah,
thanks.
So Erin Runyon and her partner Ken were from Stanton, that's where they lived, and Erin has a 5-year-old daughter, Samantha, from Cindy just like closed her eyes in agony. Yeah. Okay. 5-year-old daughter Samantha from a previous relationship. Ken has 2 kids as well from a prior relationship, and so they're all kind of a joint household. I couldn't find too much about Samantha. I mean, she's literally 5, so the description of her I saw was she, quote, loved superheroes, princess costumes, and sunflowers.
So she was just a radiant ball of joy like most children her age.
Yep. Yeah, nothing crazy going on there.
Yeah.
Just a kid. On this particular July evening in 2002, Erin's mom was watching Samantha while she went to the gym.
Okay.
And Samantha had a little fellow 5-year-old friend, Sarah, and they were playing in the front yard. Oh, yeah, which should not be a fucking concern. I can't believe we live in a fucking place at time where that is concerning. It should never be. I
won't let Ollie, we have a fenced in backyard, and I will not let him out there by himself. If he's out there and I'm in the house, I'm watching out the back kitchen window, and if I can't see him for more than 5 seconds, I'm like, where are you? Like, it's just the reality we live in.
But not the fucking front yard. No,
fuck no. Never.
Again, not to victim blame. This really should not be anything that's alarming.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely
you can see why they would think it's fine. So again, the 2 kids are playing in the yard, and Alejandro Avila literally pulls up and snatches her from the fucking yard.
So fucked up.
And the friend Sarah reported later that the man came up to them and asked if they had seen his dog, looking for his puppy, which is a classic ploy. And I don't know if my mom heard about this or if this ploy is used multiple times. I think it is. Because my mom literally, I have a true crime mom, and she raised me to be deeply paranoid and afraid, which is, to my benefit.
Yeah, sadly.
But Yeah, and I grew up watching Dateline, which is like maybe not good for my mental health. But anyway, but she literally like told me as a small child, if someone asks you where their fucking dog is, kick him in like the balls and run. Like she was literally like, no one needs you to help them with their dog. Like fucking, no, I already knew this.
A grown adult man does not need a 5-year-old's help with their animal. No,
exactly. So I was already debriefed on this. But anyway, so that's what he uses to like just basically distract them for like a minute,
right?
Because he quickly abducts Samantha as she's literally kicking and screaming and putting up a fight. He puts her in her car, fucking drives away. And based on Sarah's report, they develop a sketch of which they do release. Yeah. So I'm gonna get back to what happened to Samantha in a minute.
One sec. Go ahead. No, I read somewhere that she yelled for her friend to like tell her grandma. Like, tell my grandma. Yeah. I read that she, like, as she was being abducted, she was screaming, like, tell my grandma, tell my grandma. And which is like so sad that she has the awareness to know what's happening. You know what I mean? And like, it just that I actually read, I was going to do this case and then I was like, nope, motherfucking nope. And then I saw you took it and I was like, God fucking damn it. But I just, that like was the first thing that like haunted me. Like this poor little child like already knows she's in deep shit, you know?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, for sure. No, I didn't see that, but thank you for adding
I just wanted
additional horrible details.
Yeah, isn't that great?
God. So I wanted to back up for a minute to talk about who Alejandro Avila is, because his background is really horrific.
Oh, good.
He was 27 at this time and lived in Lake Elsinore. He lived with his sister Elvira, mother, I said it like the Halloween lady. He lived with his sister Elvira, mother Adelina, and sister Adelita. He had a lot of violence in his family background. He had endured horrific physical and sexual abuse like his whole life, or as a kid. His father had also gone to prison for killing a neighbor.
Oh, wow.
And his younger brother was murdered in Mexico by gang members. I'm not sure if he was a gang member or how that all went down, but so there's like murder victims and murderers and just like nonstop violence and trauma that he grew up with.
Yeah, that's fucked.
He's also a piece of shit, though. I don't want to sound like I'm excusing him.
No, you feel bad for the child. You hate the adult. It's like you can still do that because there are other people that grew up the same way he did and did not turn out the way he did. So
exactly, yeah. He was a pedophile piece of shit from like day one. He was charged with molesting 2 girls, one of which was the daughter of his ex-fiance, and he actually threatened her that she told anyone, the daughter, that he would kill her and her mom.
Oh, wow.
But bravely, I think perhaps because they broke up. And by the way, they broke up because he was physically violent and abusive to the fiance.
Okay.
Not surprising.
Right. Not at all.
Perhaps because they broke up, the little girl did bravely tell her mom what was happening, despite being threatened.
Yeah, like once he was out of the picture and she felt safe, she could tell the truth. Ugh, that's heartbreaking.
And in 2000, he was actually acquitted on these charges because they said all there is basically are the word of this little girl and we don't believe her.
Wow, that's fucking great. What a lesson to teach a young woman, like a young girl, like straight off the bat. Like, we don't care if you're fucking sexually abused or harmed at all.
And it's so courageous to come forward with that, and so hard, and it's so heart-wrenching. And also it's heart-wrenching because he could have been in prison, right?
Right.
For that, which would have been cool.
Yeah, that would have prevented this whole fucking thing. And that happens so fucking often. Ugh.
Yeah, and we don't take any kind of sexual abuse or rape or anything of women or kids or girls fucking seriously. Obviously, we don't.
Still, we don't. Like, and we still don't see it as a crime that will escalate because it does. And it's fucking crazy that we don't. Makes me insane.
Okay, so another daughter of another ex of his said that he molested her in 1997 when she was 7 years old.
Wow.
So and by the way, there's also a pattern where he clearly dated women who had young daughters. And this woman, who I think came forward later and described the abuse that she was subject to, described really horrific incidents, which I will not detail because I can't put them out of my mouth.
It's like too much. Yeah, fuck that. We're doing enough with this case.
Doing enough, but suffice to say, they are very grotesque. I'll just leave it there, and so you can imagine. And it's again brave of her to come forward and tell all of that publicly, but it really paints a picture of how disgusting he is. And violent. Not that molestation is ever non-violent, but like it's violent and sexually abusive.
Right.
And he said that she said he also molested her cousin. So this is a serial molester.
This is just what he fucking does.
Constantly. Yeah. So, all right, back to Samantha here. This is going to be really horrific. Like, wee woo, putting a little siren on the podcast here.
Yeah, I didn't get to this part because, again, I chose not to. So, thanks.
It's really bad. Okay, so after he abducted Samantha, he drove her around for I think a few hours because he was waiting for it to get dark, which you can just imagine how this poor little girl
just having to,
be scared. Yeah. He then took her to a motel room, I believe, which I'm not sure how that worked. And then later to a rural area where he sexually assaulted her in really horrific ways, which again, I will not detail, but
yeah, thank you.
That's already horrific enough to say.
Yes.
And he ultimately killed her. He suffocated her, but I also saw that her cause of death was blunt force trauma.
So he just did a lot of horrible things to her.
Kind of overkill multiple things. Yeah. When her body was found the next day, her body was posed in a spread eagle position, which is fucking disgusting and reminds me of the hillside stranglers used to do that, right, with their victims, and that was a way of degrading them because they were sex workers and all these things. But it's like, this is a 5-year-old. Not that it's ever okay to do that. It's disgusting. But like,
no, but it's not like those women, like on the scale of women victims, they're all equal. But we're talking about a child. They have never even had any sort of sexual experience in their lives, and to sexualize them further is so beyond
gross.
Beyond. Yeah,
it's so fucking gross. So her grandma noticed right away that she was missing, called 911, and a search ensued, and like I said, they found her the next day in that rural area. I kind of missed a step here where they came to suspect him, but there was that sketch as far as like how they got him, but I'm about to detail a bullshit amount of evidence against him, so I think it's kind of like easy to put together.
I think it was her friend that was there was able to like give them the
identify
sketch.
him.
Yeah.
So that helps, but I'll go through the evidence and you can be like, oh yeah, I'm sure they picked him up for a couple of these like 18 things.
Right.
So in initial interviews after they got Alejandro here, investigators got the impression that he was really arrogant and basically that he thought he could get away with anything, which is really fucking hilarious when you consider all the evidence that he left around.
Well, that's the arrogance, isn't it?
Exactly. And they also said that he was, quote, taking the offensive during questioning, so he wasn't like shy or anything. He was like, hey, fuck you, I'm awesome,
What a fucking idiot.
Yeah. And regarding the charges, this will make you mad. Regarding the charges he got in the past for molesting those 2 girls, when they kind of asked him about that, which I'm sure also was how they, came to him in the
Figured
first
it
place.
out, yeah.
He told the detectives that he, quote, kissed and tickled them, but it wasn't sexual.
How is kissing not sexual anyway? Like, if you're gonna lie,
gross. Yeah.
The whole thing is a fucking ridiculous. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude.
Yeah, and it almost feels like he's trying to normalize like a small part of it. And I'm like, don't normalize a fucking thing.
No,
like,
you can't fucking normalize it. And you also, he's again just like calling these little girls fucking liars. And it's like, well, how the fuck are all these little girls, these 2 little girls liars, and then this one ends up dead? It's like, come on, dude. Come on.
Yeah. And I don't want to shit on his family at all, but I just wanted to note that, by the way, his mom was interviewed after his arrest and told the press that all those accusations in the past were false. Her son would never do that. Her son is awesome.
I'm gonna
I just want to say, like, again, not to shit on the family. She's wrong, but I just want to say that, like, I don't know. He seems like the kind of guy, based on the arrogance comments and based on people describing his demeanor, who he seems like the kind of guy who was always kind of like coddled and told he was perfect.
Yeah, it sounds like that.
And like, really, everyone with kids, like, hold your kids accountable and like,
yeah,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean? Like, don't raise them to be like little perfect princes or whatever, because you create assholes.
Yeah, you create narcissists and you create bad fucking people is what you create. Like,
yeah. Also, I'm gonna do Todd Colehep at some point for like a Patreon. And did you know his mom still thinks he's innocent even though he's confessed?
Yep. I did him a long time ago, but I think it's down. Or even if it's not, I did
the motorsport.
Yeah, so it's not a full one. Yeah, I would love for you to do a deep dive on that motherfucker. Yeah.
But like, when that happened with him and his mom, I'm like, oh, that says everything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's when the mom stands by him that hard, you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I see how this happened. Like,
Yeah. I know a mother and her daughter, and the mother is like that, and the daughter is definitely a narcissist, and it's
Mhm.
kind of like, well, there you go. Like,
Yep.
that's how that fucking
Yep.
happens.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, again, at trial, and like, how dare you even plead not guilty? Again, especially with all the evidence. His sister Elvira testified that Alejandro was very familiar with the area where Samantha's body was discovered.
Mhm.
He had no alibi at all for that day. Elvira said that he told her he was going to the beach. Then he told police he was at the mall. So he can't even decide where he went.
Mhm.
Alejandro was shown on surveillance footage from a gas station that day wearing shoes that matched a shoe print found next to Samantha's body, but the shoes were missing, so he obviously tossed them.
Right.
His cell phone data confirmed that he traveled from Lake Elsinore to Stanton on the day she was abducted, basically going on the exact path, right, that he would have had to go.
Right.
They also found an abundant records of child pornography on his computer.
Mm.
Not shocking.
Yeah.
And in one of the most haunting pieces of evidence I've ever heard, that I'm sorry to have to share with you, Samantha's DNA was found in 2 places, including her. Okay, so her DNA was found on the door handles on the inside of Alejandro's car doors,
Mhm.
and the DNA specifically came from her tears.
Oh. Oh.
So that's fucked.
Oh,
So she
that's
was
so fucking sad. She's like
yeah.
wiping her eyes and pulling on the
Yes.
doors. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Yes, it really like paints a whole picture of
Oh,
like what
that
she was
poor
going
little
through.
girl.
Yeah, crying in that car, and trying to get out. Like it's
Jesus
so
fuck. This
fucking
guy is a fucking monster.
horrible. Yeah. 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 His DNA was also found in her fingernails, meaning
Okay.
she was like, swiping at him.
Good girl.
Ugh, yeah, I mean that's so 2 separate kinds of DNA.
Yeah.
Kind of
I
like
mean,
slam.
it's really
fucking dunk.
sad, but I'm glad she fucking did everything she could, and she fought and she tried her hardest.
She tried. Yeah, it's
Good.
fucking horrific. At some point, his ex-fiance also came out and said that she thought he was actually looking for her daughter that day to
Ooh.
abduct because they actually lived only a few doors away from Samantha.
Oh, that's terrifying.
From that house. Yeah. So that was I think he was gonna abduct the one girl and then saw the girls playing in the
Just
front
saw
yard
them
and
outside.
just randomly did that. Yeah.
God damn it.
And his ex said that Alejandro was obsessed with her daughter, who he had molested, and actually, since he got released on those charges, was stalking and threatening and harassing them.
And just nobody was doing anything. Nobody was
And
helping
no one
him
cared.
because
Yeah.
nobody gave a shit because nobody believed them. Ugh.
Yes. His ex-fiance also said that that him being arrested and facing justice for Samantha's murder was basically for her also him facing justice for her daughter, because remember, he was acquitted and she was fucking still pissed.
Yeah.
And she said that she also struggled with guilt because she thought she should have tried harder to get him behind bars, but it's like, girl, you clearly did what you could.
And it's like, this is not your fault. This is squarely on the police. This is
Yes.
squarely, as always, on the fucking worthless ass cops who don't
Yeah.
give a fuck and don't believe women and are just pieces of shit who are fucking power hungry and don't actually care about helping anyone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Correct. Thank you for summarizing that.
Yes.
So in 2005, due to this fucking mountain of evidence, he was found guilty on a bajillion charges and he was given the death penalty. In 2014, and I will say of the survey of people that I looked at, was a great percentage of these folks on death row.
Mhm.
A lot of them are crimes against children. So I think that does tend to sway juries to
in California, at least, for sure. Yeah.
to give this out.
Yep. I actually was going to mention that to you because I was going down the list and I was like, can't do that one. Oh,
Yeah,
can't do that one. Oh, can't do
I
that
tried to
one.
not
Like,
include. I tried to include a few, but not like the whole list.
yeah. But I was just like, nope.
I know you
nope.
won't do them. Yeah,
No, generally not. I have before, but like it's too much.
it's not your favorite.
Yeah, I don't love it.
Obviously, it's no one's favorite. That's a stupid thing to say, but
no, I know what you mean though. But there are people who are able and willing to cover those cases, and I do believe that there's like a need to do that, and it's important to highlight those cases. But it's not me. It's just not me doing it. I can't.
Okay, so 2014, he kept appealing his sentence because he's an asshole. In 2014, his death penalty was upheld.
Good.
By the Supreme Court of California. Yeah.
Again, it's California, so good.
But at no point has Avila ever admitted guilt or showed any remorse, and he's continued to appeal.
Buddy, we got your DNA. Like, the girl saw
So
you.
stupid.
This is not like,
yeah.
Come on. Like,
he's
at
arrogant
this point, it's
and
just
stupid.
embarrassing. It's embarrassing at a point.
Yeah.
Like, who do you think you're fooling? Obviously, nobody. So
no one. So Samantha's mom, Erin, founded the Joyful Child Foundation in Samantha's memory, which I think kind of advocates for child victims and sort of, keeping kids safe. But I wanted to just like go through a few quotes of Erin, her mom, because I've like rarely seen a victim's parents or family member deal or be so fucking smart about the death penalty. So I thought was really appropriate for this week's topic too. In an extensive interview, Erin talked about how she kind of won't forgive Avila, but that she said, quote, "My way of forgiving is to recognize and accept who Avila was and where he came from. It's no excuse for what he did at all, but it is a fact that he was a victim of horrible crimes himself. We need to prevent crimes against all children." And so she actually talks about his trauma and his story, which I think is like shockingly cool.
Yeah.
And because she says her goal is basically to advocate for all child victims of violence and trauma, because that begets more perpetrators, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. She couldn't be more right.
Yeah. She said, quote, "I tell his stories for a lot of reasons. People tend to think about child murderers as monsters, but we need to understand that what creates these monsters is the cycle of violence."
Yes.
Like, correct.
Yes.
And she's also against the death penalty. So she wasn't even in support of her daughter's killer's sentence.
Good for her.
And I love the way she puts it too. When she was asked about it in this interview, my final thing, she says, quote, "Believe me, I would have killed him
right.
if it meant saving my child. But when she was gone, what's the point of killing him? How is killing someone making a statement against murder? I just don't think we should be playing God."
Absolutely agree. Like, if she had somehow,
she's like, "Yeah, I'll kill him myself."
Yeah, exactly. Like, if she had somehow been there at the time and been able to like shoot him to keep him from taking her daughter, great. But after the fact, it's just vengeance. It's just vengeance.
Exactly. She's like, what's the point now? Like,
yeah.
So I thought she was really smart, and it's good that, I mean, there's nothing good about this, but it's good that she's found advocacy as a way to like heal and process things.
Agree.
But and that she sees a holistic picture of the trauma that shaped him and all this stuff, because like a lot of people are just sort of like fry him and that's it, which is, understandable, but it's cool that she has a smarter like view.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever take like a basic psychology class, they show you like the different levels of development, and like the last level is like almost like optional, like and a lot of people, once they get to a certain age, like they don't emotionally develop beyond that. So everything's very black and white. Everything's very simple and straightforward. They don't have like the rational ability to like see things abstractly, sort of. So it's really nice when people like that are able to kind of advocate for what is right on the larger scale. So that's really great that she takes that approach. It's really fucked up what happened.
Really fucked up.
God damn.
Yeah. The front yard thing just fucking haunts me, man. Because I'm just, again, this should not be a thing where, like, for instance, you don't let Ollie in your front yard. Like, that should not be a thing, but it's a thing.
It's absolutely a thing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a thing. Because, and I also have kind of like, Ollie is a little afraid to go out front by himself. Like, he won't go unless one of us is with him. It's to the point where I'm like, I'm going to watch you go out to the car. Like, I'm going to watch you walk to the car, because God knows what's going to happen, even in that short of a fucking span. Like, something can happen then. It's crazy how quick it can be.
Again, I don't love that I was like a paranoid, anxious kid, but it was also good in a way. Like, my mom was like, stay away from vans. She was like, don't fucking talk to anyone. I still don't like to talk to strangers. Like, she like really ingrained in me some basic shit. Yeah. And I did grow up watching crime shows about kids being murdered. So
I mean, it's traumatizing in a way, but it's the fucking reality of the world.
It's educational. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. I need to wash my brain out. All right. Oof. Okay. I'm going to do mine. I just needed a moment there to breathe. I don't know if you guys heard about the woman in Hong Kong who was murdered. I posted about it on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's their most liked photos. We started doing like news on our Instagram. So if you guys,
true crime news.
so if you guys are into that, you can come join the Instagram. It's what is it? Twisted Listers PCast.
Yes.
But this one has over 500 likes and like has gained us like 100 followers nearly. It's like really, I'm sure some of them will drop off eventually, but like really fucking crazy.
Crazy case, yeah.
It's a case we will 100% do cover once more comes out, because it's a Diva case. Like it's the kind you really like these kinds of cases.
Anytime someone's dismembered, you're like, Diva, you're all happy.
It's the
like,
cooking.
check it out.
It's the body cooking in
The
pots.
cooking,
like that's what makes me think of you, which is like so twisted, but also just, it's reality. So, okay, just taking that little turn 180 intermission. Yeah. Okay. I am now.
You just said, by the way, I just want to point out that you said you're going to wash your brain out, and then you told me about someone being dismembered.
I know.
You're like, okay, that's the palate cleanser. You're like, okay.
Yeah. What is wrong with us? Good God.
Ooh, okay.
All right. Well, somehow it worked. I'm going to do the Sweetheart Murders. This comes out of my hometown, Davis, California, which means I was very excited when I saw on the list. This was actually one I was considering doing for a Patreon, but it was when my life just got super busy, and then I ended up doing the other one, the Hitchhiker Killer. But this was one that had caught my eye a while back. So when I saw it on the list, I was like, I have to fucking do this. So Davis, California is about 11 miles west of Sacramento and about, 70 miles east of the Bay Area. Same level. So like we're directly east from San Francisco. We're directly west from Sacramento. It's a farm town. There's a college there, so lots of professors. It's very safe, very safe.
Yeah.
Very family oriented.
Very sleepy.
Very sleepy. When the college is out, the town, like the population, literally, I'm not joking, like cuts in half.
Yeah, like Santa Barbara.
Yeah, so the actual like residents there, it's not a large town. Like I said, it's near Sacramento. It's pretty close to San Francisco. It's definitely got some cool stuff around it, but it's in Yolo County. So when Yolo was a thing, I felt very cool. But it's basically like the big city in Yolo County, which is never a good thing when your tiny town is like the big city. So it's very, very sleepy, very safe. There have been some instances of violence and murder in Davis. They are very few and far between. I covered the case of Daniel Marsh in 2013. He killed that elderly couple. He was born and raised in Davis. There was also like a woman who stabbed her boyfriend in Sacramento and then like dumped his body at the Motel 6 in Davis, which is literally like the seediest motel in the whole city. But even that didn't really happen there. The one thing of note is there were 2 attacks by GSK. So, actually in this really lovely little community, they have their own like little community. Davis has little like communities of homes, and a friend of mine grew up in that community, and I didn't know this until later. I was like, holy shit, that's terrifying.
Yeah, well, this is his area, his hunting ground.
It is, and it's crazy, but he attacked, I think, just 2, possibly 3 people in Davis. I believe it was 2. So it's not completely immune, but it is like there's not 1 murder per year at all, like not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to walk around at 3 a.m. barefoot when I was like 14 years old and stoned and was like, fine. So anyway, this takes place in 1980. It involves a young couple with very bright futures. Their names were Sabrina Gonzalez and John Riggins. The 2 met the summer before college, where they were both attending UCD. They were both freshmen. They were a great match. John was a local baseball hero who grew up in Davis and came from a really good family. Davis families are what you think of when you picture like the American dream. Like I'll just put it there. It's
suburban,
good families. They've all got money, good educations, supportive. I mean, there's definitely like, the other side. Every town has, whatever, but like by and large, that's the Davis family.
Yeah.
Sabrina was actually born in Alameda County, so like Oakland or thereabouts, but was raised primarily in Hawaii as her father was in the military. So she grew up in a very loving family with 2 sisters and a brother, and she had a love of horses and rode as a youth. Also, her family would ride with her. It's unclear why she was in Davis the summer before school started. I can tell you from experience that most students don't come into town until like the week before, because they move in and they get like set up and then they start going. But she was, I don't know. And the summer of 1980, she met John. They hit it off immediately and became a very well-known and well-liked couple. It could actually be, I think I just figured out how she was there early. Her sister may have already been going to UCD because she was living with her sister. Or had started at least living with her sister. I don't know if they were still living together when this happens, but my assumption now that I'm like thinking about the case is that she had moved in early that summer to like hang out with her sister. So that makes sense. Okay, figured it out. So anyway, they're a really good looking couple. I have to be honest. Like, he was fucking beautiful. He was like this tall, athletic, like redhead. Like they were just like super.
They look like they would be like homecoming king and queen or whatever.
Thank you.
The fuck.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's the look.
Yeah, there's really cute pictures of them like hanging out at Lake Tahoe, you know, getting dressed up to go out to a party, just being really happy kids, right?
Yeah, like as good looking as a 1980 like kid could be. Like you're just perfect.
Perfect. I mean, they're picture perfect.
Yeah.
And apparently they had a really great relationship. It's unclear. Like it's actually thought that they hadn't even like had sex yet. They were like so like just this like
very
pure, wholesome. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So on the evening of December 20th, 1980, they went to the Davis Veterans Memorial Building to help set up for a production of The Nutcracker, which when I was a little kid, I went and saw The Nutcracker in that building. So this is definitely a Davis tradition.
Yeah.
From there, they were heading to Sabrina's sister's birthday party and had offered to pick up some ice cream on the way. I believe the party was in Davis as well, but I do know that they never made it to that party. So they immediately were reported missing the very next day. Because her sister was like, I had just talked to my sister. She was bringing ice cream to my birthday party. Now she's not here. She's not home the next day. So both families report them right away.
Yeah.
Davis cops are just as bad as any other cop. They're garbage. But the one benefit of a small, rich town is that when, you know, cute college students especially are reported missing, the Davis police actually take it seriously. So they immediately begin a search for the couple. I don't know how much, you know, information they gathered before they found the couple, but pretty quickly they ended up in Sacramento, about 35 miles from Davis, in a wooded area surrounded by trees. Now, there's a lot of farmland and wooded areas around there. There's less now as it's becoming developed more, but I learned to drive on these creepy ass country roads, and I always thought about like who might be hiding out there, like lurking in the fucking tree lines so that like line the roads. So it's basically like a road and then a bunch of trees, and then like it could be like, well, in this instance, it's like a ravine, or it could be just like farmland. But there's always this like creepy tree border that like anybody could hide in. So it's fucking terrifying. So anyway, they find John's van. It took them a while because there was really heavy fog, which is also a regular thing out there. But apparently on this night, it was really, really heavy. So they had to wait till it cleared the next morning to kind of really be able to search. So they did find his van, but the couple was not inside. What was inside were some fast food wrappers, random trash, because, you know, they're, you know, 18-year-old, 20-year-old kids, or no, they're 18-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And a blue and red quilt that had obviously been wrapped. Like, I think it was meant as a birthday present, but so it was wrapped, but then it was also wrapped in like its plastic cover. Okay. Because like it had never been opened.
Gotcha.
And it was meant as a present for Sabrina's sister. But it looked like somebody had unwrapped it that night. So because the wrapping was still in the van. So it wasn't like it had been in the van for a long time and being used. It was brand new, pulled out of the wrapping, and then left in the van.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter, the bodies of Sabrina and John were found nearby in a ravine. When they found the couple, it was a pretty horrifying scene. They had both had their throats slashed and had duct tape over their mouths and eyes.
Oh, I hate the duct tape thing. Anytime there's the duct tape, I'm just like, oh, God.
It's so horrifying. Like when people's whole heads are duct tape, I'm like, that is like a particular kind of torture. Like
that's a nightmare. Like
absolute nightmare. I start to feel like claustrophobic thinking about it.
Oh, God.
So this wasn't like a full head wrapping, but it certainly wasn't okay. You know, their eyes, their mouths. And then, of course, as you can guess, Sabrina had been raped. Likely on that blanket. We'll get there. John Riggins had also been hit on the head, likely as he was attempting to help Sabrina. So it seems like they did fight back and unfortunately lost.
Gotcha.
Sabrina had been nearly decapitated, but John's artery had actually been missed. So he slowly bled to death, likely over the course of a few hours, and could have been saved had anybody found them in time, which is horrifying.
Yeah, that's fucked.
Extra fucked. So this was obviously a fucking huge deal in Davis. Like, how could this couple be abducted like that, right?
Yeah.
And police are doing everything they can, and they track down a witness. This was somebody driving by the road where the bodies were found who saw a man emerge from the bushes that next morning, early on December 21st. The man was described as wearing a yellow, blood-stained t-shirt and a, quote, drab army-style jacket.
Yeah, just a guy casually walking around covered in blood. That's
covered in blood. Out of the woods, like coming up out of like the tree line out of the woods, which is literally like my nightmare. And there it was.
Ugh. Yeah.
He was described as white, 6'2", but also stocky. So it was like a big 6'2", between 22 and 26 years old, with blonde, shaggy hair that was feathered around his face and parted down the middle. The witness said the man got into a brown pickup truck that seemed to be waiting for him on the side of the road. Police were also able to determine that the couple had last been seen in North Davis at a Lucky Shopping Plaza, where they had potentially stopped in at a restaurant to look at the menu before leaving without ordering. So this is possibly where they were abducted, but most cops think it was most likely that they went back to Sabrina's condo, which was across the street, and were grabbed there. I lived in the apartments next to hers. Fucking insane. So,
oh my God.
And this was my local grocery store. It used to be a Lucky's, now it's an Albertsons. So I used to shop there when it was an Albertsons. Yeah, fucking crazy, right?
That's like very, 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 very local. I have my case like that is like Zodiac, actually. So where I went to high school, there's like Zodiac murders. So
yeah, fucking crazy. So this is mine. Like, this is my like big one from the area.
Wow. That's crazy.
They have information, but despite this, the case goes cold. They have this guy. They have a sketch of the guy. They have, this brown truck. There was also somebody who saw John's van like swerving, like driving, like swerving. But they also said that it was so foggy they couldn't get a license plate number, like whoever saw them. But nobody actually saw them getting abducted. And I can tell you that 20 years later, when I was walking around there, like a youth living in an apartment, it's dead around there. Nobody's out at night. Nobody's around to see. If you're downtown, it's different. But like where she lived, it would have been very easy to abduct them with nobody seeing.
Yeah. And that kind of quiet, sleepy place can feel safe, but it can also feel like isolated. And
and very scary. Yeah. So this is going to be interesting to you. The case goes cold. But 6 years later, police get a tip linking the Gallego love slave murders to this case. And we covered this last week, you guys. Yeah. I thought you would like that. They said that while Gerald Gallego was in prison at this time, or like, I don't know that he was in prison, but he was in custody, his very loyal half-brother likely attempted a copycat murder under Gerald's direction. It was theorized that he ordered this murder as it was just 48 days after the one he was caught for, and he wanted to throw police off his trail.
Right. Classic.
Yes. It didn't work. And surprise, spoiler alert, he was actually not involved in this. But it was a good theory.
It's not impossible. Yeah.
No, I mean, it makes sense. It was the same time frame. It was like the same area. And his brother was actually like his half brother was like a bad fucking dude.
Yeah, and they were caught for killing a couple.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's kind of consistent. Yeah,
it really makes sense. Even so, police knew, like, even though I can tell you, like, that wasn't the case at the time, police were still, investigating this, and they knew there had to be more than one person involved because the van was left there where the murders were, or where the bodies were dumped, and a witness saw that second vehicle, so it couldn't be only one person.
Yeah.
So even with all this information and this theory, other theories continued to fly around, including the idea it may have been a server at the restaurant they visited, or even the Zodiac. So there was a thought that because the Zodiac came to Berryessa pretty close to Davis, so,
But he was like a decade earlier.
Right, but they're like, did he come out of retirement or whatever? You know what I mean? Like,
oh my gosh,
he kept killing,
I do. Oh my God, I want to do a Patreon on Zodiac so bad, but it would be like 12 hours.
We should do it. Fuck it, we should do it.
It would be the longest. It would be like an 8-part series, but hey, it would cover us for a while on Patreon.
Yeah, fuck yeah, just go for it, Diva. Let me.
I have absolute dibs on Zodiacs.
I know. So in any case, not a lot to go on. David Hunt, who was Gerald Gallego's brother, and a few of his accomplices were finally actually arrested in 1989, 9 years after the murders, because they were basically like the best suspects they had. So it took 3 years for them to actually be arrested, but they finally thought they had enough evidence. They spent an additional 3 years in jail for being released after DNA testing showed none of them matched the samples that were found on the blanket. Because I should mention that quilt had 4 or 5 different spots on it that had semen.
Okay. Okay.
And, you know, in 1989, DNA testing wasn't great, but it was able to exclude David Hunt and his so-called accomplices. So the case goes cold again. But David and his accomplices were never like cleared. They were like, okay, we have to drop the charges and let you out of jail, but you're still on our radar, because they never officially went to trial, so they could charge them again if they wanted. This case did get solved, obviously, because we're talking about death row cases, but it took a very long time.
Okay.
So after 1996, when the main investigator on the case retired, the case sort of fell to the side and nobody was really looking at it. Now, along comes a former Davis College student, a guy hilariously named Joel Davis, who lived in Davis,
Okay.
who somehow finds and becomes very interested in this case, to the point where he wrote a book about it called Justice Waits, the UC Davis Sweetheart Murders.
Great title.
Yeah, it really is. And not only did he write this book, but he is actually basically the main reason that this case ever got solved.
It's awesome. Yeah, it could have been on our like amateur sleuths list as well.
Yeah, I know, right? So like I said, there was semen on the blanket. The blanket was brand new when it was put into John's van. And as I said, I don't think John and Sabrina had ever even had sex. And they did rule John out with the DNA.
Okay. So it's not his.
Right. But again, I haven't mentioned too much about the DNA because it's like, well, we have the semen. Like, what's going on? Why aren't we using it? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
DNA evidence wasn't admissible in court until 1986. So even though they had the DNA, they couldn't have even used it for 6 years. And even then, it wasn't the smoking gun it is today because, you know, they didn't have the exact kind of science that they have now. So basically, for whatever reason, after they sort of exonerated, not even fully, but just let David Hunt and his accomplices go, they sort of just dropped the DNA lead. And again, the case went cold. Joel Davis, who had 15 years experience working in newspapers and a graduate degree in journalism from, I believe, Columbia, decided that he wanted to see this case solved. So he began very nicely harassing a Sacramento County prosecutor, Anne Marie Schubert. And after she spoke with, I think, John Riggins' mother, she was also hooked and very badly wanted to see the case solved.
Yeah.
So they go back to the drawing board with the DNA. And by this time it's 2002. So a lot more can be done with these samples. It's 22 years since the murders took place. Been a long fucking time. So they have to go back and track down all this evidence that's been lost, been misplaced, been moved around. But finally, they get all of this together and they put the DNA into the system. And lo and behold, they get a match from a registered sex offender and child molester in Washington.
Ugh.
Yes. This man was named Richard Hirschfield. And at the time, he was serving a sentence in Washington for said child molestation.
So they had his DNA.
They did.
On file.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fucking finally. So see, justice waits.
It did. Yeah.
At the time of the murders, his brother was living in Rancho Cordova, which is the area of Sacramento where the bodies were found. His brother lived about a mile from the dump site.
Okay.
He also, Richard, had just that summer been released on parole after a violent rape conviction because, as we all know, you don't get a lot of time for rape because women don't matter.
Oh, gosh.
And yeah, so it all lined up.
But like nonviolent drug offenses, though, like away for life.
For life, you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even though the DNA was a 1 in 240 trillion match, it took 2 more years for Richard Hirschfield to be arrested and charged, mostly because he was playing all these ridiculous games with his lawyers. He was saying, like, apparently in one of the arrest warrants, they put his name in all caps, and he was like, well, that's not my name. That's not me. Like, I need you to prove that I am who I am. Like, all this fucking bullshit because the guy's a piece of shit. Meanwhile, David Hunt was in prison for other crimes because he wasn't exactly like a good guy. And as soon as he released, he boned out and went directly to Mexico. So they were like, oh, maybe he was involved. Like maybe he was the other guy. Like, so they're still like really stuck on this like Gallego connection as even 22 years on. Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So finally, Richard Hirschfield goes to trial. And right before he went to trial, this fucking crazy thing happened. So you know how I mentioned that he likely didn't do it alone?
Mm-hmm.
and that he had a brother who lived nearby.
Yeah.
So the day after his brother Joe found out about the DNA match and was interviewed by police, his dead body was found in his car along with a suicide note that read in part, "I've been living with this horror for 20 years
Oh
and
my God.
I was there." He also wrote the most incriminating words possible, quote, "Richard did commit those murders, but I was there. I didn't kill anyone, but my DNA is still there." And, quote, "It's only a matter of time before they find my DNA too."
Oh my gosh. Okay, so like slam
Yeah.
dunk. I mean, that's like what a twist.
Yeah, right? I was just like, holy
Yeah.
fuck, dude. So the truck waiting for Richard was probably Joe's, and it's now thought that before they were murdered and dumped in the ravine, they had been taken to Joe's apartment nearby and subjected to rape and torture for the better part of the night, which is extraordinarily horrific.
Wow, both of them.
Well, I don't think they raped John, but they tortured him. And
Yeah,
also
assaulted him.
and that makes a lot of sense for why the two of them weren't able to overpower one man, you know?
Yeah, because there was two.
Yeah, because he didn't have a gun, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So makes a
Wow.
lot of sense. So at the trial, this guy Richard is the biggest piece of shit. He's trying every trick in the book. They wheel him in a wheelchair to his trial, even though he's
Classic.
57 years old and has like no
Classic.
known disabilities. Right. His defense filed more than 200 motions and were granted tons of delays. And it takes like, I think he was
Ugh.
arrested, 2002, 2003. He finally goes to trial, I think in like 2013. Like, this is how long it took for them to get this guy in the courtroom because of his fucking piece of shit lawyers. Once they got him in, though, he was found guilty like very quickly. The jury deliberated for a whopping 3 hours before coming back with the guilty verdict. So he knew that's what was going to happen, and he was just trying to put it off.
Yeah.
He was then given the death penalty and now resides on death row. I believe at this point he's in his late 70s. And it's funny because I was actually trying to find his age, and an article came up that said something like California's death row turning into elderly care center. And I'm like, yeah, it is, because we don't kill anybody. We just keep them in there so they die of old age. They're in their like 70s and shit, you know? So to this day, he claims he's innocent, which like,
God,
how
dude.
embarrassing. Like, there's
He
DNA and a confession from your brother who killed himself.
It's just like with fucking Alejandro Avila, my last case. A lot of these dudes are narcissists and they can't admit they're wrong no matter what, like just compulsively. And they're fucking like, it just gives you a total sense of like the narcissist people that they are.
It's just embarrassing, though. It's like, dude, who exactly do you think that you're fooling? Because you just look like an idiot on top of everything else. Like, there's nothing redeemable about you. You're just a terrible person. Anyway, so that's the case. He's on death row. He's going to die of natural causes there, which is fine. I'm glad they caught him. It took, 23 years for him to be brought to justice. He wasn't that old at the time he was caught. Like I said, he was like 57. So he at least spent or is spending like a decent amount of time in prison for it. But
this is a scary dude. And like, did he victimize other people in that time? Like maybe.
I mean, absolutely. He was in prison at the time he was arrested for molesting children. So he was definitely not out there living his best life. He was doing horrible.
No. Well, I mean, to him, I guess.
Well, yeah, he was having a great time, but he's a terrible human. So I'm glad he's off the streets. I'm bummed it took so long. If you look, the funny thing, if you look at the sketch, it fucking looks like him from that time too. So it definitely wasn't for lack of trying. I think it's just hard because he was a drifter. He didn't stay in the area, and DNA wasn't what it is now. So, without more kind of witnesses or somebody coming forward, it would be hard to crack that case. But luckily they did eventually. So,
oh my gosh, what a crazy case.
I know, right?
Yeah, we were also talking about doing like cold cases that are solved later, which is like, that's one of them.
Yeah, it really is. The slow hand of justice.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty wild. I was excited to do that one because it's one I've been wanting to do. So I was really happy that it fell into this category. I'm actually really stoked on both of my cases this week because they're both like very interesting and weird and have like shock moments, like the suicide note and all that. So pretty great.
Wow.
All right, guys. So that's it for today. Thanks everybody for listening. Please like, rate, review. We posted
Yes.
something on the Instagram story asking to get our 70th review on Spotify, and we got 2. So now we're up to 71, which is great.
Yay, thank you. I know they're so sweet and responsive.
I know Chandler hooked us up, but also somebody else did too. I don't know who you are. So thank you for doing that, guys.
Thank you.
If anybody else wants to jump on the review train, please feel free. And we shout out our Patreon and all that enough. We'll do it again next time.
Okay.
So I guess until the next episode,
Stay.
off our
Thanks.
Diva. Bye.